And now, live from downtown Amarillo, Texas, this is the Amarillo Pioneer Podcast. Here's your host and the editor of the Amarillo Pioneer, Thomas Warren.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast again today. And we're speaking with another candidate running in the May 6th election. And today we're speaking actually with one of the incumbents running for re-election to the AISD school board. And our incumbent tonight is Kimberly Anderson. She is running for a second term on the school board after first being elected in 2019. Did I get that year right?
Yes, sir, you sure did.
Excellent. Well, we're going to be talking to Kimberly Anderson a little bit about why she's running and her priorities and her accomplishments and everything else like that. But before we get started, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight, Kimberly, and how are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, let's just go ahead and jump right into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for re-election this year.
Well, I'm a lifelong Amarilloan, if you will. I grew up in Eastridge, went through Eastridge Elementary, Travis Middle School, Paladero High School. I've lived here my whole life. I went off to college for just a couple years and then came back when I changed my major to education and ended up at WT, finishing that up. I'm married almost 21 years to my husband, who's also born and raised here in Amarillo. John, he's fantastic, and I have two really great kids, two boys, an 11-year-old and a 16-year-old that are in Amarillo ISD, and so deep roots in Amarillo, and I care a whole lot about this city. I love this city, and I want nothing more than for this city and everyone in it to flourish. And I know that starts with a really strong educational system. And so it's been just an honor and privilege to serve the last 4 years on the Board of Trustees. But I don't feel like my work is done. I feel like there's more to do. We've made a lot of progress in the last 4 years, even amidst a global pandemic and way too many unprecedented circumstances. Um, and I'm proud of the progress we've made, but there's still more to do. And I want to be a part of that. And so that's why I'm running again.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about your priorities for another term. What are some issues you would like to tackle if you're reelected to the Board of Trustees this year?
You know, it's really funny when you campaign, you get all these surveys,
Sure.
and they all ask, what are the top 3 challenges that AISD is facing? And I went and looked back over the surveys that I did in 2019, and the challenges are very much the same, and that's to be expected because big challenges take a long time to conquer. And so we're still facing some of the same challenges, and we've made a lot of progress on them, but we haven't conquered them yet. And so one of those is the budget. We've been facing a decline in enrollment for the past 7 or 8 years, due to population decline in Potter County, low birth rates, those kinds of things, which severely affects our budget because we're funded on not on enrollment, on average daily attendance even. So as we have fewer kids enrolled, and then we've had a pandemic, and people are a lot quicker to keep their kids home from school when they're not feeling well, our budget has taken a hit there, and everything takes money. And so recalibrating the district, trying to figure out what that level out point is going to be, and recalibrating our district to that, finding ways to spend smarter and make each dollar work harder. That's one of our challenges and one of the priorities. We have achievement gaps that are persistent and have been for years and years in our district, and I'm really proud that we've taken a look at the root causes of those and recognize that they aren't created in our schools, that we have some students who don't have the same opportunities in their first 5 years as other students, and so they come to school not at the same readiness level. And so we're partnering with parents earlier and earlier just to make sure that when our students do enter our doors, they've had those opportunities for language acquisition and learning. And so we want to make sure we tackle those. And then there's always trust between the community and the school district. And we always want to be building more trust through better communication. And right now, there's some political forces at play that are really trying to drive a wedge between our community and our educators. And so we have to really be intentional about making sure we're communicating, making sure we're building partnerships so that our community feels like they're a part of our district and we can build that trust to a stronger level so that when those outside forces come in, our citizens know. That may be happening other places, but that's not happening in Amarillo ISD. So those are kind of three of the really big issues off of the top of my head that have been issues and that will continue to be issues because they're big issues. But we've been working on them the past 4 years, and I'd love to see that through in the next four.
Well, reflecting on the past 4 years of your term, you came in at a time when there was a lot of change on the board. You had incumbents lose re-election. You had some board members resign shortly thereafter. And so there was a lot of change on the board. Looking
Yes.
back, just reflecting on the past 4 years, what are some of the accomplishments you're most proud of from your time in office?
Oh, there's a whole lot. So opening Amtech is a huge deal, especially because we decided to go forward with that project at the onset of COVID when there was so much uncertainty. But this board saw the need and saw how important career education and the opportunity to explore careers that maybe a student had never known existed before, um, to find their thing and to find that niche place for them that will help make learning relevant and real. So I'm really, really proud that we went ahead and opened that. It's a jewel in our city. We have people from all over the state come to tour that baby, and just it knocks their socks off, and our kids light up in that building. Navigating COVID, we didn't get everything right, but we tried. And in an issue like COVID where there was so much uncertainty, I'm really proud of the way AISD wasn't reactive. We were measured. We took our time to really look at things, while also balancing making sure people felt safe coming into our schools. We've been able to raise salaries and wages, not as much as we would want to, but about 13% for our salaried employees and about 16% for our hourly employees over the past 4 years, and um, found other ways to put money in their pockets through stipends. We instituted a supply stipend for our teachers because we know teachers spend a lot of money out of pocket getting those classrooms ready every year. And it's not huge, it's about $125, but it's something. And so I'm proud of that. Um, Proud of AISD in 2022 being in the top 10 academically of the largest districts in the state after coming out of COVID and the upheaval that brought to our system. I'm really personally proud of a few projects that I've led on. I'm proud of leading to help create a proactive advocacy effort in the district. We know that so much of what happens in our schools is decided in Austin. And so it's really important that the Board of Trustees has a really intentional effort to build relationships and to communicate what those policies are going to look like in action in our schools, and hopefully avoid some bad policy, um, and promote some good policy that will empower us to do the best job we can for our community. I am proud that the district is working with a company called Brave Ed, and I won't go into great detail, but what they do is help school districts build systems to measure what's important to their community and not just star test results. And I'm very excited about seeing what happens as more of our schools get involved in that effort. And then something I spent a lot of time on this year that I'm super proud of and was a very, very rewarding experience and meaningful experience was implementing listening circles, which is small groups of teachers, students, parents, community members, you name it, where board members and administrative staff go and instead of doing the talking, we do the listening. We ask questions like what makes a great school and what are your worries and what makes you love school. And we just sit and listen and we don't try to explain away those concerns. We just take that information and use it to help us make better decisions. So that's just a few of the things that I'm super proud of. Um, there's a lot more, but we have a limited amount of time, so I will stop talking now.
Sure. Well, I want to ask you about this. You mentioned you had a career in education, and as far as I could tell, I'm looking at the list of the Board of Trustees right now. I'm guessing you're the only career educator on the board right now. And that is a very unique perspective for a board member to have, especially on a school board in a city like Amarillo. So can you just kind of outline, I mean, what benefit has that, boy, I can't get the words out tonight. What benefit has that had for you as a Board of Trustees member, coming from a background in education, being able to lead the district?
I think it's really important anytime policy is being made about education to have actual educators at the table. Like I said, when I was talking about advocacy with legislators, to be able to bring that perspective of what is this actually going to look like implemented in the classroom? How is this going to affect the learning environment of our students? Because when it comes down to it, it's about our kids. The kids should always be the first thought, the first priority, the first consideration. And so being an educator allows me to bring that. Um, Being an educator and a parent allows me to bring that because I see it from both ends. I see it from the front of the classroom and I see it at the kitchen table. And so I can see what these policies do. And believe it or not, um, educators have specialized knowledge about education theory and pedagogy that helps them be effective. And so it's really important to have that perspective at the table. I think a really diverse board is important. I think it's important to not have just the same perspective sitting in all seven of those seats. I think it's important to have multiple industries, multiple life experiences presented because then you can surround a problem and see it from all sides instead of everyone looking at it from the same perspective. So I think having diversity on that board that way is important. And again, I just think if you're making decisions about education, you need someone who's been in the classroom at the table to give their perspective to potentially help us avoid in good intentions passing policies that are just going to make it harder for them to actually do a good job for our kids. And I also think there's a relevance of having been in the classroom because the classroom is very different from what it was when I was in school. Um, over 20 years ago. Um, and there's one person younger than me on the board. And so that means everyone else is older than me. And so it's definitely a lot different than when they were in the classroom. And if we're just looking at it from what it looked like when we were in students and desks, we're missing a big part of the story because education is constantly changing and evolving. The classroom looks much different than it did. And so it's important to have that perspective as well.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about some of these big issues that are kind of divisive in the community, and I want to ask you about one. So luckily only one, but it's something I'm sure you've heard about, and I interviewed Trustee Ford a little earlier today, and we discussed this issue as well. And it's the issue of books and materials in the schools and the classrooms that parents have objected to. I'm sure you've heard the
Yes.
concerns that have been expressed about this to your school board
Yes.
and all over the state. How do you think the Board of Trustees should go about addressing this issue, and how is the board addressing it now for anyone who hasn't been following?
Well, the first thing I think people should realize is that the Board of Trustees doesn't choose instructional resources. We have no part to play in that because most of us aren't educators. So we don't have the expertise to choose those resources and make sure they align with the TEKS or TEX or however you want to say that acronym. Make sure that they're developmentally appropriate, that they are in line with best practices. Board members don't have that expertise in most cases. And so the school board doesn't choose those, that we don't approve them. We ultimately approve purchases and we certify that the resources that the district has available to teachers cover all of the TEKS, and we adopt the TEKS as a curriculum, even though we don't really have power over that either because the state has said this is what you're going to teach. So that's one thing I think people should know is that the board's role is really we develop a policy that sets forth the parameters for choosing instructional resources and books for classrooms and provides an avenue for parents if they want to challenge a resource. But other than that, that's a management issue, and we don't micromanage that. Now, what I do know about this specific issue is that our administration did a great job. Um, it was vetted. It was vetted by TEA. It was vetted by several campuses, and there were no red flags. And then red flags did come up this year from some parents. And so the district assembled a group of educators to dig back through and look at the curriculum and see what we missed and see if there were some places that maybe we could pull a lesson and add a different lesson to cover the same teaks, the same learning objectives, but that might make parents more comfortable. And they did that. And I think that they did a great job of addressing that. That they took those parents seriously. They didn't write them off, but they also didn't just reactively throw the baby out with the bathwater. They looked at it. They were measured in their response to it. I think parents have every right to choose um, what their kids have access to, but I don't think parents have the right to make that choice for other parents. And so I think just because one parent objects to something doesn't necessarily mean that that thing has to be pulled for everybody. And every parent has the right. It's in Chapter 26 of the Texas Education Code. Every parent has the right to request and have their student not be a part of a lesson if they don't like the content of that lesson or not read a certain book. And so um, I think that our district handled it well. Um, and I think it's unfortunate that it arose to the level of controversy that it did. Um, and I think that we can look back and look at how we communicated and do take some steps to improve that so that we can avoid, you know, storming the boardroom and that, having the big tumult over it. But in the end, I'm really proud of the district partnering with parents to make things better.
Well, one final policy question, and then we'll get into some of the fun stuff.
Okay.
What can the Board of Trustees do right now in this next term, I guess, to improve what the district has been doing as far as getting students college ready? Because it seems like AC and WT, they get a lot of students from AISD schools, and for that matter, AISD students go, all over the country. I saw there was a story, I'm sure you saw it as well, about how there's an AISD student who just got accepted to Harvard.
Yes.
And so, there's some great success stories out of AISD, but what can the Board of Trustees do to ensure even more college-ready students are coming out of our schools in future years?
That is a fantastic question. And I think that it's Amtech's amazing. And I'm so glad that we have that open. But we can't rest on that. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep looking for opportunities to connect our students with those experiences and those opportunities to explore and to see what life has to offer them, in the way of professions and careers, as well as their interests, outside of that, whether that be the arts or sports. I think all of that is important. And in my professional work, um, I work to with a collective impact, initiative to help, and we call it build pathways to careers. And that doesn't mean a lot to people, but it's to kind of build those supports from kindergarten all the way to getting hired into that job, to remove barriers and to smooth out that path. And so I've had the opportunity to talk to some employers and talk to people about what really needs to happen. And I think, you know, we're moving in the right direction. We've built Amtech. We've moved our focus off of just getting everyone to a 4-year college. And we've acknowledged that success isn't just one path. That success, yes, sometimes goes through a university, but sometimes it goes through a union apprenticeship or on the job training or a 2-year college. Um, that there are many ways to get there. And I think we also need to recognize what employers tell us, that sometimes it's those, I don't want to call them soft skills because it makes them sound less important. So we're going to say critical skills, um, like flexibility and creativity and collaboration and communication, um, that are really important to making sure our students are career and college ready. The ability to critically think and analyze information, the ability to take initiative, when they see a problem. I think, more opportunities for our students to practice those skills. And I see a lot of those things happening in our classrooms, but that's where we talk about the power of extracurricular activities, whether it be sports or arts or speech and debate. I have a son that does congressional debate, and he has to learn how to work with other people. He has to learn how to debate with civility. He has to learn how to consider both sides of an argument and to have evidence to support his beliefs and his arguments. And so I think offering all of those opportunities and continuing to grow those opportunities for our students is one really important way to make sure that we are really meeting our mission in preparing every graduate for life and success after high school.
That is excellent. Well, like I said, we're getting into the fun stuff now. We've kind of changed it up a little bit this year because we've done these candidate interviews for several years. And what we found is, we'll sit here and we'll talk for 45 minutes about policy, but we don't really give people a chance to know you all that well outside of what you're going to do if you get elected. And win or lose, we're all neighbors in this community and we all should get to know each other a little better. So we've come up with a few questions we want to ask you that I think will give folks a very good chance to know you better about who you actually are outside of your name on the ballot. And I have to warn you, a couple of these might be the most controversial questions you get all election cycle. So
I am up for it.
Okay, well, we'll just jump right into it. What is your favorite thing about Amarillo?
The people. Like I said, I love Amarillo so much. And, in my job, I get to witness the best of Amarillo because I work for a philanthropy foundation. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Panhandle Gives. And that is a week in November, top 26 counties, all of Panhandle, all of Amarillo, 100, 150 nonprofits, maybe 200. And Amarillo residents and Panhandle residents raised almost $9 million for the nonprofits that do good work in our communities. And that just really speaks to the generosity of the people in Amarillo and the Panhandle as a whole, but also that when I see a need, I step up and fill it. And it makes me so proud when I get to go to these conventions and people are bragging on the community service project that their students participated in. And I'm like, oh, well, we have Snack Pack and Colorful Closets and Story Bridge and Leaders Readers and, so on and so forth, that it's just ingrained in our people that when you see a problem, you step up and you find a solution and you help. That's my favorite part.
What was your first job?
My first paying job
Paying job.
was, I think it was the summer after my sophomore year, and the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission had a thing where they paid high school students to go intern for the summer. And I was basically a receptionist at the Lone Star Ballet for a summer. And that was my first job.
Oh, that's an incredible internship.
Yes.
Well, what is your favorite restaurant in Amarillo, and what's your go-to order when you go there?
Oh, that's so hard. But today I'm going to say, tomorrow it might change. Today I'm going to say Jorge's. And my go-to order would be the tacos. I love tacos anywhere. And so that's my go-to order.
There's nothing wrong with that answer at all. Well, this is the big one. This is the most controversial one, and I hope this doesn't lose you any votes. But I'm having to ask these hard-hitting questions. So, which Amarillo high school has the best mascot?
Oh, Paladera High School, absolutely. I have to say that I graduated from Paladera in 1999. Also, the prettiest school colors. Go Big Blue. If you would like for me to sing the alma mater and the fight song, I can do that for you. Definitely Paladera.
It's always great to hear the candidates' answers to that questions, because you could tell some people are like, well, I just like all of them, So it's
yes.
Well, outside of the fun stuff, for people who are listening to this, they might be saying, I have so many choices for the Board of Trustees, and I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Can you just give us your elevator pitch and take a second to tell us why you are the candidate who needs to be reelected to the Board of Trustees this year?
Absolutely. My educational background, my experience as a classroom teacher in AISD, as a parent in AISD, and the fact that I am an incumbent. I have served for the last 4 years, and now I have a lot more knowledge and experience that will make me a stronger board member. And I believe I've served well. I've been a strong advocate for our students and our teachers and our community on this board. And I think that's what sets me apart from other candidates is my experience as a classroom teacher, and the fact that I am a parent of 2 children in AISD right now. So it's real to me. I think that's what sets me apart.
Well, for anyone listening to this who wants to get a yard sign or knock on doors or donate or just do something to get you reelected to the school board, how can they go about doing that?
Well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The handle is @Anderson for AISD, and that's FOR, not the number. And then my website is Anderson for AISD, again, FOR, not the number, .com. And you can get a hold of me there, or my email, andersonforaisd@gmail.com, any of those places.
Absolutely. Well, Kimberly Anderson, we really appreciate you speaking with us tonight, and we wish you all the best on this campaign. And for the folks who are listening to this who haven't made up your minds yet, May 6th is still a little ways away, but by now you need to be researching the candidates, and we hope that tonight gave you a better opportunity to know Kimberly Anderson and why she wants to return to the Board of Trustees work for you. But either way, like I said, Kimberly, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you.